Hello BookTube. I know this video is late. Tomorrow people will already start posting the next round for ShakeTube, which is Julius Caesar. But I've been super busy of late and I didn't want to be left off the bandwagon, especially for Romeo and Juliet. But that brings me to my next confession. You see, I haven't read Romeo and Juliet for ShakeTube, but I have taught it for the last 5 years and I feel that I finished it recently enough to not need another refresher. When I read Romeo and Juliet years ago, I enjoyed it. Honestly, just plain enjoyed it. It has some gorgeous quotable lines, some magnificent language, and even though the plot only covers a handful of days, the characters are believable, they seem real. I must admit though that teaching it has managed to change my opinion on Romeo and Juliet. You know how kids claim that the set work books that they studied at school, they didn't enjoy it? It's a two-way street, folks. It's a two-way street. Anyway, to get back to my opinions and not teaching its opinions, Romeo really annoys me. He whines throughout the majority of the play. He really needs to haul out the big girl panties and find some perspective. But on a more serious note though, I found his language when he was talking about his love for Rosaline exceptionally fickle. And a part of me is wondering if Shakespeare was mocking the Petrarchan sonnet. It's a theory that's been mentioned with regards to his sonnet 130, My Mistress's Eyes, and if that is the case, then it adds a bit more credibility towards his loving Juliet, as opposed to it just being an infatuation or in love with the idea of being in love. It's Juliet who actually helps give Romeo a bit more grounding. Take, for example, the balcony scene where she asks Romeo to prove his love and he starts by swearing on the moon, and Juliet says to him, don't swear on the moon is inconsistent, and she asks him to find something real, something believable. Juliet as a whole is a far more mature and sensible character than Romeo. She even warns him that, not to move so quickly because, it's dangerous. It's a pity she didn't take her own advice. Now, I'm pretty sure that everybody who's done a ShakeTube video has spoken mostly about Romeo and Juliet, so I'd like to do something a little different and speak about some of the other characters that I found were interesting. And the first one I'd like to mention is Capulet, because Capulet really has two very different sides. The first time we see Capulet is when he is arranging Juliet's marriage to Paris. And Paris is very keen, and Capulet says to him, we got to just wait a while, young mothers are easily spoiled or something along those lines. I haven't memorized this play and it's late again. I must stop making videos after midnight. And anyway, he tells Paris that, he's got to wait a year or two. And he also says that, it's not just Capulet, his own will, Capulet's will. He says that Juliet has a say in this as well. And he tells Paris to win her heart. As a father in this time, one has to acknowledge that he found a very good match or catch for Juliet. I mean, Paris had land, he had money, he had a title. But then we see a completely different side of Capulet when Juliet refuses to marry Paris. And we have that wonderful scene where there's a lot of aggression. The word carrion is tossed about a bit. I think it was even referred to as being green, or maybe I just described it like that to the kids to the point that I think Shakespeare did too. Anyway, another character that I really find interesting is Friar Lawrence, because let's face it, agreeing to marry the two was hardly a wise decision, considering that their families were feuding. The fake death potion route was it was even less so, because the truth would have solved not just Juliet's problem of getting out of marrying Paris, it would have solved the issues with Romeo as well. And then we also need to think about the fact that he abandoned Juliet in the tomb with her dead Romeo. He ran away to save his own skin, and only an imbecile would not have seen where the story was heading. I think Friar Lawrence has a lot of responsibility for the tragedy on his shoulders, especially as, Juliet was 13. But anyway, to conclude, Romeo and Juliet, the most famous love story of all time, except it was insta-love, and the two didn't know each other long enough to even have their first fight, let alone make up. But it is a play that is filled with interesting characters and some superb examples of English. It's just a pity that Romeo really drives me nuts. Anyway, getting back to general things, I doubt I'm going to have the time over the next 2 weeks to do more ShakeTube videos or to read Shakespeare. It's the end of the term, or we're nearing the end of term, and we're currently writing exams. I've got a pile of marking, and then I've got a ton of comments to write and reports to do and numbers to not type in incorrectly. So I'm going to be super busy for the next 2 weeks, but after that I will try and catch up. We will see how smoothly the schedule runs. In the meantime, cheers for now. Bye.